activities, you will be able to chant his name, and in this way you will get an easy delivery from the path of life and death. In fact, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, he says that kleshodik taras tesham avyakta sakta chetasam avyakta hi gatir dukkham dehavad biravapyate. That those who take to the worship of God in his impersonal manifestation will find the going very tough. It will be very painful. It will be a difficult path for those who worship him in the impersonal manifestation. Therefore, out of his kindness to reveal his personal form to us, he comes down as avatar. And those who are able to understand his appearance as avatar, these people do not have to come back into this world when they leave the body. So to make you understand that God has a personal aspect and he also has an impersonal aspect, we discussed yesterday. Now today we are going to do who is God. Already you had a video show on gods and demigods. Now I'll give you a small lecture on this myself, but I'll give it to you after the slideshow. The slideshow we will have will be on helping you understand Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his most magnificent incarnation. So we'll have a slideshow now. After the slideshow, I will have a lecture on gods and demigods, and then after that, I will ask for any questions from the audience in case you have many doubts, because it's a very difficult topic to swallow. Because, for example, even my father, he says, for 60 years I've been worshipping, and you say I am worshipping a demigod. So I said, I am not telling you. This is what Bhagavad Gita says. So it's not I who am telling you something, it's what Bhagavad Gita is saying. I am simply repeating what the Bhagavad Gita is saying. And if you doubt what I am saying from the Bhagavad Gita, you read it yourself. Yesterday I told you that if you want to read scripture, you must read scripture as it is. That is, without any distortion, without any interpretation. That's what I am doing. I am just quoting Bhagavad Gita as it is. If you don't believe me, you can read Bhagavad Gita as it is for yourself. You can take any edition of Bhagavad Gita. You don't have to get one from here. You take a Sanskrit English dictionary, you sit down and you read Bhagavad Gita for yourself, and you will know what it means. So now we'll have a small slideshow on Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his most magnificent incarnation. Now what does Krishna say in the Bhagavad Gita? In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Evam parampara praptam imam rajarishyo vidu. That if you want to understand the science of self-realization, as I am telling you now in the Bhagavad Gita, you must hear it in disciplic succession as saintly kings understood it in the past. So here we have Lord Krishna, and Lord Krishna revealed this message originally, as he says in the Bhagavad Gita, to the sun god Vivishwan. He revealed it to his son Ikshvaku, and Ikshvaku revealed it to his son Manu. And in this way, we have a disciplic succession coming down from God himself. So God reveals the original message, because the message of God can be revealed only by God. It is said, Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam. That the principles of God, of religion, are enunciated by God himself. And he reveals his message to his devotees. And in this way, this message is passed down through a chain of self-realized spiritual masters until it comes down to you. This is known as disciplic succession or parampara. So one must hear it in parampara. So today you are hearing it in parampara, but which parampara are you hearing it from? You are hearing it from the Brahma Gaudiya Sampradaya. That in the beginning, Krishna related this knowledge into the heart of Brahma. It is said, Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavayo, that the first message that was given by Lord Krishna was given into the heart of Lord Brahma. And Brahma in turn revealed this knowledge to his son Narad Muni. And Narad Muni in turn revealed it to his disciple Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva in turn revealed it to Madhvacharya. And Madhvacharya revealed it in turn to his disciples. And it has come down by disciplic succession through his divine grace, A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada, and through my spiritual master, his divine grace, Srila Kirtananand Swami Bhaktipad. The first thing we have to understand about Krishna is that Krishna is not a mythological character. This is a very, very important point. Because very often when people talk about Krishna, they say, oh, you mean the character from Indian myths and legends. Now Krishna is not a myth, Krishna is not a legend. He is not the product of somebody's imagination. Of course, nowadays we are fed on a lot of stuff like Superman and Batman and He-Man and Masters of the Universe. But one must never imagine that just because Krishna's activities are super normal, he fits into the characteristics of comic strip heroes. that he is an imaginary character or a literary figure or a figure of myth and imagination. Krishna is a genuine historical personality. And this genuine historical personality has left behind archaeological evidence to show that he actually functioned and behaved here on earth like a human being. And recently, evidence for this has been obtained in the search for the lost city of Dwarka. That was the city which Krishna ruled. Now, in this search for the lost city of Dwarka, we have evidence of archaeologists who declare that it cannot but be Krishna's Dwarka. These cuttings are from the Illustrated Weekly of India, which featured a story on the archaeological expedition going on in Dwarka. So Krishna actually did exist 5,000 years ago. And not only did he exist, he has left archaeological evidence of his being here on this earth. So also the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Never imagine that this is a myth or a legend, because the battlefield of Kurukshetra actually did exist. And one of the biggest wars in recorded human history took place on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. And in fact, the battlefield of Kurukshetra is still existing today. Kurukshetra is existing north of Delhi. And a Russian scientist, who is not a devotee of Lord Krishna, who is a scientist, went to this battlefield of Kurukshetra and he unearthed a human skull. This human skull he took back with him to Russia. And in Russia, Professor Gorobowski, he carbon dated that skull. And he found that that skull belonged to a human being who died 5,000 years ago. That skull was 5,000 years old. That is about precisely the date of the battle of Kurukshetra. Furthermore, he also discovered that the skull emitted radiation, as if the person had died in a radioactive holocaust, as if he had died in a nuclear explosion. And if you turn to the Mahabharata today, in the Mahabharata there is a very specific verse which describes the release of the Brahmastra, which can be compared to a nuclear weapon. And the release of this nuclear weapon, you can see, is described in great detail. The mushroom cloud is described. Now the mushroom cloud was unknown to human beings until 1940s, when they burst the first atom bomb over Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Before that, nobody knew that an atomic explosion results in a mushroom cloud. But in the Mahabharata, which was put down 5,000 years ago, the mushroom cloud of the nuclear explosion is clearly described. Furthermore, the Mahabharata describes the radiation fallout from a nuclear explosion. It describes the nuclear winter that follows the explosion. It describes the effect of radiation on the survivors of that explosion. So 5,000 years ago, before anyone could imagine anything about nuclear warfare, we have evidence in the Mahabharata that a nuclear war did take place. Furthermore, in addition to all this, you also have evidence. As I showed you, this Russian scientist who took the skull has carbon dated that skull to the time of the battlefield of Kurukshetra 5,000 years ago. And this is the skull of a man who has died in a nuclear explosion. So this is to show you that Krishna is an actual personality, that the Mahabharata talks about historical events, and the battlefield of Kurukshetra actually took place. And so did the conversation between Krishna and Arjuna, which we are going to follow in the next 7 days. That is the Bhagavad Gita. Now, if you want to understand the Bhagavad Gita, you must understand the Bhagavad Gita as it is meant to be understood. That means you must understand it in the spirit in which it is meant to be understood. If you try to understand the Bhagavad Gita according to your own philosophy, if you try to fit in your own philosophy into the Bhagavad Gita, then you will remain in darkness. But if you want to take the Bhagavad Gita in the spirit in which it was written, if you want to take the original message of the Bhagavad Gita by understanding what he meant to say, then you must learn to look at the speaker of the Bhagavad Gita with the right vision. If you don't learn to look at the speaker of the Bhagavad Gita with the right vision, you will never ever understand Bhagavad Gita. Because Bhagavad Gita is not a book which is meant for pop philosophy to be quoted on the cocktail party circuit. The Bhagavad Gita is a book about devotion to God. And the speaker of the Bhagavad Gita is declared to be God throughout the Bhagavad Gita. So you must learn to look at the speaker of the Bhagavad Gita with right vision. And what do I mean by looking at the Bhagavad Gita, the speaker of the Bhagavad Gita with right vision? That means you must look at him as Arjuna looked at him. And Arjuna, how did Arjuna look at him? Arjuna accepted him as God. Arjuna says in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, Param Brahma Param Dhama Pavitram Paramam Bhavam Purusham Shashvatam Divyam Adi Devam Ajam Vibhum. He says, I accept you as the Supreme Lord. And after accepting him as the Supreme Lord, then the Lord reveals to him the message of the Bhagavad Gita. So if you want to understand the Bhagavad Gita, at least theoretically, even if you don't have a practical realization that Krishna is God, at least theoretically you must accept Krishna as God, otherwise you will not have any hope of understanding the Bhagavad Gita. Now, as I have explained, God is understood in 3 stages. It has been said, Vadanti tat tattva vidas tattvam yajnanam advayam brahmeti parmatmeti bhagwan iti shabdyate. That God is understood in 3 stages. He is understood by the Jnani as Brahman. He is understood by the Yogi as Paramatma. And he is understood by the devotee as Bhagwan. As I pointed out yesterday, just like when you see the sunshine entering the room, you may say the sun has entered the room, but in actual fact, the sun has only entered the room as sunshine. So also when you realize Brahman, sometimes you may feel that you have realized God. But in actual fact, when you realize Brahman, you have realized the all-pervading effulgence of the Lord, which is known as Brahman. This is the realization of the Jnani. The yogi who meditates on the Lord seated in the heart eventually sees the form of the Lord represented in the heart, just like you might see the reflection of the sun in a mirror. And by seeing the reflection of the sun in the mirror, you get to see a localized representation of the sun. So also the yogi who meditates on the Lord in the heart eventually begins to see Paramatma, the form of the Lord seated in the heart. But when you look into the sky and you see the sun shining in all its glory as the source of the Paramatma and the source of the Brahman, then you understand that Bhagwan is the source of Paramatma, Bhagwan is the source of Brahman, and actually Bhagwan, that is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the source of the localized representation and the all-pervading energy of the Lord. Now, how do we understand Bhagwan? When he comes as avatar, we can understand Bhagwan. But as I have told you, to understand avatar, we have very strict criteria for identifying an avatar. Because tomorrow anybody will claim to be avatar. After you learn a little bit about Bhagavad Gita, you might be surprised that some people might come up to you and tell you that, oh, I am Bhagwan, I am avatar, please worship me. So we should know how to differentiate between a genuine avatar and a hoaxer or a trickster. So first of all, we judge Krishna also by the same criteria. Now Krishna is mentioned in all the scriptures as God. In the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna tells Krishna, he says, Param Brahma Param Dhama Pavitram Paramam Bhavam Purusham Shashvatam Divyam Adi Devam Ajam Vibhum. Now you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you are the original person, you are the primal, the original personality of Godhead. And then he says, in case you might think that because Krishna is a friend of God, he is trying to promote him. That is, Krishna is trying to win votes for, Arjuna is trying to win votes for Krishna as God because he is his friend. So he clarifies later on, he says, Ahustvam Rishyo Sarve Deva Rishi Naradastatha Asita Devala Vyasa Swayam Chaiva Bravishimi. It's not only I who is declaring you as God, but all the great spiritual personalities existing at this time have all accepted you as God. It's also mentioned in the Brahma Samhita that Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. The second point is that it's only the genuine avatar who is able to reveal his cosmic universal form. Krishna says in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, I am the basis of the universal form which displays endless variety through repeated creation, maintenance and destruction of the planetary systems. So this form can only be revealed by Lord Krishna himself. It can only be revealed by a genuine avatar. A yogi or a hypnotist might be able to help you see a form as Krishna or Ram or some other form. But it's only the genuine avatar who can make you see this cosmic manifestation. So this is the second test of avatar. One is whether he is mentioned in scripture before his appearance, and second is whether he is able to reveal his cosmic universal form. Krishna has been accepted, as I pointed out, ahustam rishyo sarve deva rishi naradas tatha. That all spiritual personalities at that time, all of them accepted Krishna as God. Unanimously, all spiritual personalities accepted Krishna as the supreme personality of Godhead. So you have Vyasdev, you have Narad Muni, and in later times you have all great personalities like Madhvacharya, Ramanujacharya. You have all the demigods in the different scriptures, all of them declaring Krishna as the supreme personality of Godhead. Now when we talk about God, we should understand that there is only one God. We are not talking about different gods or separate gods. There is only one God. And we know him by different names. In fact, in the Rig Veda it has been said, Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti. That there is only one God, but the learned know him by different names. So we may know him as Yahweh, we know him as Jehovah, we may know him as Krishna, or we may know him as Allah. But it's actually originally the same God. Of course, those who are in knowledge may worship him in his personal aspect, but those who are not in knowledge may worship him in his impersonal aspect. Both of them are equally valid. It is equally valid to worship God in his impersonal aspect as it is valid to worship him in his personal aspect. The only thing is that when you worship him in his personal aspect, the path of God realization becomes a simpler and easier path for you. Now, this is further proof that Krishna is God, because by following the principles of Bhakti Yoga, by following the